My name is Ed Nardi, Chair of the Natural Resources Commission, and I am calling this public meeting to order at 7 p.m. Tonight's NRC meeting will be a hybrid in-person and Zoom meeting. We have a microphone set up at the commission table, and plans will be projected through the TV monitor. If you are presenting via Zoom, please turn on your audio and microphone when it is time for you to speak. Following the presentation by the petitioner and questions from the commission, members of the public will have the opportunity to ask questions and provide public comment. Please identify yourself with name and address for the record. You can also raise your hand from your phone by dialing *9 and use *6 to unmute. All video screens will be turned off with the exception of any commissioners attending virtually and the current petitioner. Once the commission has acted on an application, the petitioner is free to leave the meeting. In the event of any technical difficulties, all matters on the agenda that have not been heard will be automatically continued to the June 12th meeting. Please note that the meeting is being recorded. At this time, I would ask the commissioners to introduce themselves. Nick
Nick Pappas.
and Bill.
Bill Kermazen.
Thank you. All right, moving on to the agenda. The first item this evening is a period of public comment limited to 10 minutes. With no more than 2 minutes allocated to any one speaker, public comment is limited to items that are not on the agenda this evening. Any public comment? Not on your screen, Delia? All right. Moving on to approval of meeting minutes, March 20th, 2024. Thank you, Karen. I had no comments. They look great to me.
One minor, which one was corrected.
Okay, Bill?
I'm fine with them, yeah.
Okay,
So why don't I move that we accept it as amended?
Second.
all right, and the vote. Bill?
Aye.
Nick?
Aye.
And I am an aye as well. Any commissioner comments?
Okay.
All right, none for me as well. Delia, director's update, please.
None for me.
Oh, holy cow.
I know.
First time, I think, for me.
Yeah.
Hey, moving right along.
Yeah,
I think just to note, an application that we had before us was withdrawn without prejudice, and that was the, again, for the record, notice of intent. 155 Old Bedford Road, DEP file 137-1672, which means we'll move on to our first continuance of the evening. And timing works, which is a notice of intent. 287 Lindsay Pond Road, DEP file 137-1667. Good evening, Bruce.
Good evening. How's everybody today? Staying warm?
Oh, yeah, I think so. By doing more than that. Thank you.
Good. Since our last meeting, we submitted a series of 5 sketches that show the different orientations of the buildings on the property. We submitted along with that a narrative that addressed the changes within each of those. On each of them, we addressed, indicated the existing structures as well as the structures as submitted in our original application. And then in red, the proposed modifications of that. We also submitted with that application a couple renderings that we submitted previously. And I'd like to just draw our attention to those one more time, if I may. Would you mind sharing the screen for that, Brett? And that would be the 4 sketches from 111 Works, please.
Yeah, and Bruce, do you want to just kind of quickly touch on the options you provided? Do you want to focus?
Yeah, I
on-
do, but I want to just touch on this real quickly.
Okay.
First.
Sure.
So this is this
Wanna
piece
bring that up
first. As has been mentioned in previous hearings, the design team has worked together with the homeowners and namely 111 Works from the standpoint of creating architecture that works on the property, works in with the community. So this first image that we're looking at here is part of the relationship between the 2 buildings. The buildings are designed so that from portions of the site, the ridge lines as well as this opening for the portico line right up with the other building. And if you go to the next slide, please, Bert. This is a slight shift. And a slight shift now, as you can see, the architecture of the cottage building in the back doesn't line up. We're now looking at a post and windows. It doesn't jive. And then the next slide, if you would. This is how an aerial of that, and you can see we had done a three-dimensional view before, and we don't need to go back to that, but you can see how the ridge lines from the portico, which has the little cupola on the top, through to the ridge line in the back, and those doorways that we were looking at in profile all work. And if you go to the last slide of this series. Shifting it just slightly, now everything is off shifted. This is like a major shift. This is the scheme that's in scheme 4 that we'll get to in just a minute. And now you can see these buildings are much too close together. There's no access through the septic system for either the installation or for any repairs that may be necessary over the years and in the future. So I just wanted to bring that piece back because as we go to the sketches, and I'll rifle through these and hit the bullet points on these for us. If you can zoom right in on the actual area, if you would, please. We don't need to see the whole lot. There you go. So in these first three iterations, we maintain the same relationship between the buildings that I spoke of before. And in this one, we worked hard. We moved the buildings about 6 feet further from the wetlands, actually moved it further away, but as we did and shifted it, because the cottage building has to still meet the setback to the property line, setback from Lindsay Pond Road in the upper left corner as you're looking at it. The buildings actually shift so they're closer to the wetlands that does the 90 degrees up towards Lindsay Pond Road there, and you can see that everything that was a front yard is now gobbled up. So the plateau that was in front of the house, both the existing and as proposed, is gone. We've moved the house, the closest part of the patio has gone from 50 feet to 42 feet in the 50 foot no disturb zone. The building itself has gone from 30.8 to 36 feet. We have reduced the area in the 50 foot buffer, but we've gained more disturbance within the wetlands itself because the whole infrastructure, the parking court and everything else moves into it as the buildings shift east or plan right as you're looking at it. So I covered those two. The patio is now in the 50 foot zone. The roof drainages are closer to the wetlands. They're just out of the 50 foot, but they're closer. And we do have less disturbance in the 50 foot buffer. But the site creates areas in this upper plateau, the yard area, that it basically takes away the whole front yard. If you go to the next scheme, please, correct? So in this scheme, we tried to get the plateau back, tried to kind of keep it along the property line. And the only way to do that was to pivot on that lower right corner. And in doing so, we held 1 point, but the right corner actually got closer because the line of the wetlands is askew to the line of the building. So we went from a 30 foot offset to 30.8 to a 29 foot offset there. The patio went from being outside the 50 to being at 46 feet. And the drainage system might move closer for the recharge from the roof runoff. As well, there's let's see, the septic system for the building it moved into the buildings are too close and there's no physical. Oops, I'm sorry, I'm on the wrong scheme here. I'm reading my notes from the wrong piece. Patio is closer, the roof drainage is entirely within the 75 foot zone. And there's 11 square feet more disturbance in the 50 foot buffer zone with this creation. Go to the third one, please, Brett. On this one, we got everybody out of the 50 foot zone, but we have a major rotation of the structures on the property. So much so that it's not a working site. For starters, we did go from a, get to the right section here, we went from having the building at 30.8 feet to 50 feet, because we moved everything specifically outside of this zone. The roof drainage was into the, setback area for the reserve septic system. So we had to slide it down along, the building line to the point where the roof drainage now is adjacent to a corner of the building, the main portion of the building, which is a severe problem from a standpoint that you don't want to have your roof drainage infiltration adjacent to your basement. We're just asking for infiltration of the drainage, roof drainage right into the basement. And that's a big problem here.
Bruce, could you be specific and just, someone could just point that out
Sure.
for us as we just a couple of these points, just so.
Certainly, so,
Make it
so
from-
Brett, if you, where it is, the roof drainage is those dark, that dark areas right there, yeah? And then if you look up above, we have a white square that replicates that, so there, go to the right. There you go. Can I control the mouse from here? I think I can. Okay, so this roof drainage here lines up with the garage. And that's the way it is set up. But up here, the garage is here, so the roof drainage sits in the 50-foot of the 25-foot setback from the septic system. So we had to slide it down. So now this roof drainage is adjacent to the corner of the basement, rather than being, at least 20 some odd feet away. So now we're at a situation where we're infiltrating all of the roof from these two buildings into the ground right adjacent to the basement. And to take that and move it this way would be pushing it closer into the wetlands, and there's no space to go to push it up here by the road. You're pushing the drainage uphill, which is a great trick, but we're not able to do it here.
Is there a basement under the garage?
There's not a basement under the garage, no,
Okay,
just under the building itself, under the barn building.
okay, so, okay. All right, so there, it is somewhat offset from the basement, but, and maybe not 20 feet, but it's,
It's right now, the drainage is offset from it, and when we do it, now we make it immediately adjacent to it, and
But
Yeah.
there are other means of infiltrating roof runoff. This is just roof runoff that we're talking about.
this is the roof runner for the two.
There's
yeah.
there's no some from the basement or anything. It's just roof runoff.
That's just roof
Right.
runoff, right?
So there are other ways to infiltrate that. Could you even go into the reserve? I mean, you could do French drains, you could do.
But I guess it comes to the question of where do you put it, because I have
You
to
go
say
into the
25
reserve?
feet, I have to say 25 feet away from the reserve septic system.
You do,
I have to.
okay. Okay.
and the reserve septic system is,
So the reserve septic system is right here. And this is a 20-foot offset that we put on here for basements. And this is a 25-foot offset that we put on here so that we know where the drainage can and can't be.
And
It's
that
the-
applies to
It
the
applies to the
garage,
recharge of the drainage.
to the garage, or just the dwelling?
The 25-foot offset is for the drainage to the septic system. I'm not sure what you're asking about the
But you
garage.
mentioned one was one
Right,
was
okay.
basement.
All right, yeah, no, I'm
So the
sorry.
basement itself starts at this red line here
Uh-huh.
and comes back down around. So now I have this red line overlapping with this red line right in here. So I could take this and then come out over here somewhere, but now I'm getting close to the 50-foot line for the drainage, and it's problematic.
and is that? So you're picking up the ADU roof drainage?
The
and going
ADU
to a
and the barn,
small-
picking them both up.
Yeah, yep, but the ADU is going to that smaller Caltech chamber system up there.
That goes the roof, that goes to this, yes, the
And then,
smaller
and
one.
then. the
And I've
pipes
shifted that up
going out
there.
Or overflows.
There overflows. This one here at the 50-foot mark is an overflow from both of the roof drainage. And this is an overflow from the window wells, from the, ADU. Cause there's,
And is there the ability to put those two Caltech chambers together back where, under the driveway area there? Is it effectively just catching rainwater and, infiltrating it?
And I would agree with that, and I'm not sure that there's the need for those stormwater overflow structures. I don't know what the soils are like, we don't have.
Yeah, typically,
This-
I've never seen, I shouldn't say never, but in most Caltech chamber systems we've never seen a direct overflow out of them.
Or
Yeah.
it's just,
they
right
either
there,
have
right
they
there.
either have a pop-up emitter. Or you have, backup, and discharge points at the base of all the gutter downspouts, which we put in as well. But if you have a heavy rainstorm and you're backing up these chambers more so than the, ground will accept. And some of the larger rainstorms that we get now, and we size these things to handle, 1 inch of rainfall. Over the impervious area, it's on a mass balance type calculation. Then you gotta have somewhere for it to go, and if you're not having an overflow, creating an issue.
Yeah,
Problems
So
coming back
so
up.
back to Ed's earlier question about combining those two and maybe having a portion of it under the driveway.
So you would have to put it all up in here. It is at a slightly higher location. And then we would have to, it is a potential possibility, and then we'd have to run back across in this direction.
But then you'd be running that overflow from one
Location.
Caltech chamber location, if you will.
Yep.
So that could simplify it a little bit.
Well, they're basically tying into the same line. They have a connection point right here.
Then why are there two discharges?
Why wouldn't you just have?
Because one of the discharges is for the window wells and a sump in this building. And this elevation is driven by the window wells themselves. So
So
that
there's a basement in the ADU?
Yes,
there was when we're submitting to here. Right now, we're at a point where it looks like the ZBA is gonna take that away, which brings
Okay.
us into another issue.
Right, so
That we're
then
gonna get
that
to.
discharge point will also go away presumably.
The discharge point from a gravity flow, but I'm gonna have it happen over here because now this basement needs to have living space in it that it didn't have before. If I don't have it in the ADU, I have to make up for the spaces. We've had to do a lot of swapping around of.
but that would have no effect on the, on the rain coming off the roof system, so.
It wouldn't have effect on that, but now I have to also, before on this building here, it didn't have living space in the basement. And if the ZBA votes the way we believe they're going to vote, from basically the straw vote and tall tales from the discussions that we had at the last meeting,
Mhm.
we're at a situation then where there will have to be living space in the basement of the barn building, the main
Mhm.
building.
Yeah.
And that'll then also have to have either a, window well for emergency access or actual, stairs or bulkheads down into it, which will have to have the same configuration of drainage that we have here, but over here as well. So we're still gonna have the need for that point over there.
Okay,
So
well,
it's just so I'm clear, because I
I would have to
misunderstood.
understand that a little bit more
Yeah.
too, because. So you're actually draining window well points? Hmm.
So if you picture that you have your grade around your building.
Sure.
And then you have a window well that goes
Yeah.
down, so you have water that's gonna fall into that area, snow that's gonna go into that area. And if it has nowhere to go out the bottom, it's gonna back up and go in the window well.
No,
So you have to have a drain from it.
Well, yeah, I appreciate that, but again, been involved with a bunch of projects that have window wells and typically. We excavate them and put a lot of gravel in there and they typically, again, just my experience, not yours.
So we're talking about a window well that is like for, a typical small ceiling window.
Mhm.
But these window wells are also meeting the accessibility requirement for a second means of egress, so that's a full-size window.
Yeah.
That is there, not down to this level, but,
Yeah.
not as wide as this necessarily. So you have a full-size window, so we're 4 or 5 feet below the surface of the ground. And then you have to have some space below that, so that's what guides that elevation.
Mhm.
And you need gravity flow out of it, because you can't count on power when you have the big storm, you don't have the power, so. You flooded basement or you have gravity flow to get it out,
Okay,
okay? The biggest problem with this one is this totally takes the orientation of the site and rotates it dramatically from what was originally proposed. To a point where it's not an orientation that the applicants are willing to build. It doesn't meet any of their design requirements, the views of all the land that they've been protecting, towards the pond, to the meadow, looking out towards the road and not towards those particular locations. We can go to the fourth scheme, Brett. Sorry, pardon me. The fourth scheme takes the barn building and shifts it dramatically up away from the road, as we've talked about at several meetings. And it moves it outside the 50-foot zone. But it makes, if you look at this location right here, we now have the buildings overlapped. The roof lines are within 9 feet, 8.89 feet apart. Building to building, porch to building is like 12.5 feet. There's no way to bring equipment in to build the septic system. There's no way to do any repairs on the septic, shy of bringing equipment around in the 50-foot zone and tracking back and forth in this manner to both install the system and to do the work on it. And this system is planned to be installed after these structures are put in, from the mere fact that we'd be driving over the system constantly, doing work around it, doing the siding, digging and siding up the buildings and whatnot. So this particular one, this scheme here, again, the building shifts north. We do move it out of the 50-foot zone. The roof drainage structures are again closer to the reserve septic system and required to move close to the barn basement. Very similar to the 2 previous ones, but only actually even closer, because now you see here's the edge of the barn building, and here's the edge of here's the edge of the drainage right here, and here's the edge of the barn building, so those are both closer together again. We have the buildings are too close together that we talked about on this side for any access between here to either install the septic system or to work on it, and or to build the buildings. It'd be very difficult as well. And the foundations are so close together that we would be digging both foundations at the same time. So to put them in and then have no access to get in between them.
Bruce, just a quick question.
Please.
Does it get better if you push the ADU into that setback?
Funny you should ask that question. Let's go to the next scheme.
Well, just with this scheme.
With this scheme?
Yeah.
I'd have to push it a lot because we've overlapped these things right here. And if you look at the original, look at this corner here to this corner here. And now if you were to take that from this red corner, to have this same kind of offset, this building here would be all the way up into here. We would lose that whole earthen berm between the road and the property, and we'd be probably, if this is a 40-foot setback, we'd be in the neighborhood of 15 or 20 feet away from the road.
Okay, because I'm just looking at, and please correct me.
Yeah.
If I look at the ADU.
Yep.
And I'm just trying to remember where that gable is, that with the front.
That gable is right, oops, our gable was here.
Was right
Now
there.
it's here, so that gable's now here.
No, the gable of the ADU that you're trying to line up with.
That
the
is right,
barn,
that's right here,
Right there.
right? From that chimney.
So
I'm
fair
having
to
a hard
say it's
time
like at
moving
the
this picture forward.
157.5 approximately, right? That the middle numbers,
Yes, yes.
give or take.
Yep. Here, closer to the screen. I couldn't read what you were
Yeah,
reading.
I barely can read myself. And you're trying to line that up with that.
We're trying to line you up with this piece right here.
The proposed garage?
No,
or
the
open?
space between, the middle of the space between the
Right
proposed
there.
garage and the end of the
Okay.
barn building.
Okay,
So you, whoops, I
No,
can't
no,
tell
it's down, it's down
if-
below that, first, that's the line of the proposed garage, isn't it, right there?
You gotta be looking at the red one.
I'm looking at the red one, so isn't it,
So here's the proposed garage right here.
so you want to be where it says.
That's
kind
the
of
proposed
proposed,
And
if
so
you will.
I need to be lining up with this. With where it says, what is it, 157 something, which is way down here. So this line right here. Wants to become up here, which is gonna push this all the way up into here.
Okay. Understood.
So on the fifth scheme. What we've done here, thank you, Bert, is that we've taken and slid. Everything towards Lindsay Pond Road. Roughly 7 feet and a little bit of twist to try to limit the amount of building setback into that front setback. Now. What we're doing in this scheme is what you talked about in the last scheme, when you raised the question, is we're now saying. We need to get relief from the zoning board of appeals to do this. To meet the offset from the wetlands, which we believe that the way the zoning and the wetland zoning is that we're grandfathered in. Should we be able to show you that, this is the best option on the site? So assuming that it could happen, this now increases the offset from the wetlands from, and I gotta turn my page, make sure I get my numbers right. Increases our offset from the wetlands from a 30.8 to roughly 38 feet. As I said, it would require relief from the zoning board of appeals. We would be able to maintain this relationship between the two buildings, but what I did do in this scheme is I moved this building 2 feet closer to the courtyard. Again, to try to reduce the amount of impact into the setback, so I moved the courtyard 2 feet closer, we moved it the building 2 feet closer to the courtyard. And then we also pivoted everything just slightly in a clockwise direction. To try to, again, reduce the amount of impact here. Without impacting the plateau, the lawn, without bringing the patio into the setback of the 50-foot setback. This does another good reduction. It reduces another 25 feet out of the 50-foot zone. The roof drainage goes a little bit closer to the wetlands, but not by much. And we're 250 square feet less disturbance in the 50-foot zone. I think I have those backwards, or 25-foot less disturbance in the 50-foot zone and 53 square feet left disturbance in the total buffer zone. Because we're able to move some of the parking court, some of the ADU building, some of the other areas out of the 100-foot buffer.
And what does that require via the ZBA in terms of relief?
It requires the ZBA to grant us relief from the street setback
By approximately.
by approximately 7 feet.
Okay, so it's kind of a 1-to-1, right? You push them back about
Pushing
7
back,
and you
yeah,
push
I think
them
I actually have it
north
at
about
about
7.
5.5 feet, but I got a roof overhang as well that is counted
Right.
and all that. So these are the changes, sketches that were asked of us and the approach and the bullets that we provided for each of them.
And that distance, the now 38
38.
feet. also includes the roof overhang?
Yes. We were measuring from the closest point along.
All right, and, okay. I'm not, I guess, one other question is just how far that outlet's going into the
Mhm.
50, almost to the 25,
Mhm.
so that might want to be looked at a little.
I'm sorry, what was that?
The overflow is going pretty far into the 50, almost to the 25, so might want to take a closer look at that.
Right, that's something that we've talked about from the beginning. It would be a one-time dig and backfilled. What we have it set by the window wells from that building. We'd have to take a look at where it would need to be from the new building and at what elevation. Whether we can do it with a window well or whether we have to have a stairwell that goes all the way down. And then, where to put it. Again, up in that corner is the best bet because it's hitting at an elevation at just below the 150, 149 and 149 and change for the stone. The pipe goes into the stone. The issue is that as the water bubbles up in that little 2x2 area of stone, 2x2 of stone, we get that to the surface and the pipe comes in here, that water can overflow at this point, but this point is below the elevation of the window well. And so that I've got to check onto the other building. It wasn't until this past week that they've done some changes to the architecture to the floor plans inside, because it looks like we're gonna lose the basement out of the other one, but we're gonna have a basement in this one. It's gonna have a similar type characteristic. If I tried to do that down on the lower end, you can see that that elevation is literally at the edge of the wetlands on the lower
Yeah,
end.
yeah.
And which is why we moved it over there.
Okay,
We would still put it in that same general location.
okay. Thank you, Bruce.
You bet.
Nick, Bill, any thoughts on your end?
No.
It's complicated. I don't know.
Yeah, it's complicated.
Yeah, yeah. Does the zoning board, the zoning regulations, will that affect our decision or should we?
I don't know. I happened to be at the last zoning board of appeal hearing on Zoom because I was listening to another matter. So I did see that. I understood the interesting conversation about ADUs and square footage and all that kind of stuff. But it sounded like the board, I shouldn't, obviously, it seemed like they were open to considering that, the broaching the setback. Is that fair to say or not fair to say? I don't.
I would, the word that we understand from the zoning board of appeals is they like the design, they like the orientation of the buildings and the buildings, they like the positive feedback from the
Mhm.
abutters, unlike many times when I go to a zoning board of appeals. But there was a split, as you heard, between the board, relative to the interpretation of the square footage.
Yeah.
Gross square footage, and with the ZBA, you need a supermajority, which is 3 members of a 3-member board.
Mhm.
And there were 4 people present, 3 voting. I had a 2-1 on the 3 voting, and I had a 2-2 on the rest of it, so it wasn't gonna go anywhere.
Yeah.
So that's a denial. Relative to the setback, we just asked that idea, and it was we didn't get any comment on that. We have to apply,
Yeah.
which we have done, but there's no guarantee on that.
Okay,
So.
Mr. Chair,
The question,
just 1 minute.
the
Go ahead,
question
Deanna.
that you were asking, I think it is important to hear from ZBA if they're gonna allow this, because this is. I mean, it doesn't make sense for
To
NRC to make
issue
a,
something without knowing that ZBA can step on it, right? As is their purview. So, yes, please.
thank you, Mr. Chair. Jonathan Silverstein, the applicant's counsel. I just wanted to jump in quickly on a couple points. Just one thing to bear in mind is what we're asking the ZBA to approve is a new zoning violation where none currently exists. as opposed, in order to somewhat reduce further an existing nonconformity with respect to the wetland setback. So as you said, it's sort of a 1-for-1, but it's, you know, who knows what the ZBA will do. But again, it is it's asking them to approve a new violation where none currently exists. And then I guess just from a timing standpoint, I'm wondering if, again, I don't want to rehash old ground. I think that we have demonstrated compliance with the requirements of the bylaw and the regulations. We're hoping that you'll approve the current configuration, and then we won't have to continue with our request to the ZBA to approve a new zoning violation. If that's not the case, then I'm wondering if, just to avoid us having to come back yet again, where there won't be really anything new other than the ZBA's decision, if the commission would consider approving the project as proposed, but with the condition or contingency that if the ZBA approves relief from the front setback, that's the option we'll go with. Obviously, and I mentioned it last time, and expense and time and delay to the applicant is obviously not the commission's primary concern, but really the only purpose of coming back at another commission meeting, as I understand it, would be for the commission to learn what the ZBA approved or didn't approve, and to vote on whatever the result of that was. And it seems to me that you could take that vote now, if the commission's willing to consider doing that.
Thank you, Jonathan. I don't think we could take a vote tonight. I don't, we'd want to see final plans in front of us. This is an overlay with obviously dimensional, which is good. But I would profess it's hard to read exactly. I think I get it, but there's a lot of lines on the piece of paper, and I don't think it's something we'd approve. It has to be a final plan. So I don't think there'd be a vote tonight on that. And we'd also want to see if there's something, the final outcome of perhaps the outlets and any other details that may come up when you finally solidify your plans, or at least you think these are your final
And
plans.
some details, the Coltech chambers, those are sized for what?
It's on the plans.
It's on the
It's
plans.
on the plans.
The
The
drainage
details
details,
for the drainage are all on the plans.
the outfalls and what
Mhm.
those look like.
Yep.
Okay, so apologies if I missed that.
It's on the
Yeah.
sheet too.
But I think we'd still be wanting to look at what you think is a final plan.
I mean, this is not an approvable plan.
No.
There's no stamp on it. There's no,
This isn't intended to
Specificity.
be an approval.
okay, so
Okay.
just. to-
But I
just
mean,
a little
my
clearer.
crystal ball, I can give you 5 different concepts. We have the one end that we have that we wish to have approved. And these are the plans that were the concepts and the bullet points that we were asked to do.
Yeah.
That we submitted.
No,
So-
I appreciate
that's-
this. I think we all
Why don't we
appreciate
talk
that.
about them tonight? Yeah,
100%.
yep, good.
But I think
100%.
as I heard from the request from the attorney, was hoping to approve what you
Yes.
originally proposed, and I don't think that
Oh.
we're in a position to
We,
do that.
we would like to approve what we originally proposed. Obviously, we feel that we've answered the question, where the bylaw reads that, if you were there, you can't expand into it. We've done less than that amount of work in the 50-foot zone. We've maintained the same setback or tried to skate a little bit better. We've provided, I think it's 3,000, just shy of 3,500 square feet of compensatory storage, where we have 380 square, restoration
Mitigation,
area.
I think. Yeah,
Mitigation,
sure, yeah.
where we have 380,
Right,
so we're
but-
doing
but
a
just to also
near
point out that the
10%.
policy also requires that alternatives are looked at, and so that's why these
That's
are
why we're
being
here.
reviewed, right? So it isn't just that, you're,
We looked at the alternatives
Yes.
of all the different designs that we worked on previously.
yeah,
And then we've now looked at the alternatives using this design and trying to make it work on
Right.
the site.
Yep,
And the
and that's-
reasons that it can and can't.
Yeah.
Appreciated.
So just out of, just kind of taking the temperature on the table, or Nick, Bill, or would you guys have some comfort in the plan that they're proposing here that's pushing it back approximately 7 feet in terms of meeting the charge in the 50-foot no build policy of looking at alternatives, seeing what could be done?
You're talking about the last of the.
The last
the
scheme,
last-
yeah.
Of the charging. I feel a bit more comfortable with that. I mean, truthfully, I understand, I mean, the alternatives that were put up, right? The original, let me put it this way. The difference is one of aesthetics, isn't it? I mean, that's really, I mean, in terms of, it's just an aesthetic issue for the homeowners, which is perfectly reasonable, that's what they want. But it hasn't, but these other alternatives haven't proven to be, to move it out of the 50-foot zone the way we would like it to. In other words, they want that gable view through that.
We
through
want the
that-
relationship between the two buildings. that's
Between the
correct.
two buildings, and, I mean, there's other ways that one could have worked on that in terms of design. I suspect you could put the gable at the other end of the building, and put the elongated part of the L at the other side, but we're not getting into design. So I could live with that, but it isn't my first preference, but yeah.
Yeah, no, I
feel-
would agree with you, Bill. I mean, right, it's, again, we're not trying to push anybody into a non-conforming ZBA issue. However, we have, I wouldn't say competing, but we have different interests, right? The NRC and ZBA. And
I
so
would-
we're pushing our interest appropriately, I hope. And again, it may run into the ZBA as we request you make those efforts, but and then we'll have to see how that plays out at the ZBA potentially.
And again, I want to bring you back to all of the things that the property owners have done
No, you don't have,
in the interest of
I
the
understand, but you
conservation.
don't have to bring us back there. We've trodden that ground a couple of times and we appreciate that. Thank you.
So if the ZBA wouldn't approve the modification of the setback, then you're really back to the original plan, right?
Yep.
If there are problems with these others, that's the way I read it.
Potentially,
And,
yeah.
and you could say that they have demonstrated their attempt to consider alternatives.
well,
That's fine.
there's other alternatives. For example, a smaller ADU building,
Hmm.
if you will.
The building has gotten much smaller.
The ADU building has still 999
So
square
they lost
feet.
its space,
Yes, it is.
right?
Yeah, but that's a discussion of a totally different discussion, if you will. In terms of, as I understood the ZBA, what is an ADU? What is the square
Oh, I
footage
see.
appropriate to an ADU? Are basements appropriate to on and
I'm
on?
gonna just take a step back a second and point out that we're taking the existing, livable square footage of this site
Mhm.
on a 2.64 acre lot, and we're reducing it from what it is, even with the two buildings. We're reducing it dramatically. We're addressing the need for, ADA access right from ground level to the buildings. We're addressing the need and the use for the uses on the property that the landowners wish to do.
Yeah.
We're reducing that footprint, we're increasing your setbacks to the wetlands, all of which go out the window if none of this happens, and we're back to mowing right up to the edge of the wetlands, because that's what we're doing.
Mhm.
And that's where the.
And Mr. Chair, if I could just quickly,
Excuse me, Jonathan.
I'm sorry.
Feeling
I
speaking.
couldn't understand this thing, sorry.
What is the current square footage of the dwelling?
The current square footage of the dwelling, I don't know, but I'm gonna guess it's in the, high threes to mid fours.
Okay.
It's a
And-
standard colonial big
Two-story, right?
building, two-story.
And the proposed?
And the proposed is 25 for the barn, originally 25 for the barn and 1,000 for the ADU. So
And is-
so,
So is that including the basement space?
no, because you don't count the basement space in residential structures.
Well, and this is getting into the.
That's right.
basements. Okay, so
Yeah.
we're talking about a reduction. I'm trying to understand.
Yeah,
what
there
that
is a
means.
reduction
By square footage?
by square footage,
Okay.
yes,
Of living space
And-
or gross floor space?
both.
Okay.
Okay.
Let's see, before we try to kind of wrap this up, is there any public comment regarding this application?
I don't know if Hi, everyone. I'm Gail Burr. I'm the homeowner. And I don't know if this is worth pointing out, but the property itself was sold to us by the Miller family who had 5 children. And it was his last dying wish to sell us this house, and we bought it. And we've built a memorial bench in the front of the house, which is sort of on top of where the reserve septic is. And that is something that we have told not only the 5 children that grew up in the house, but the community, that they can come back to this bench and sit and enjoy the view. So it is, that specific area is something that we have not pushed the house over into, because we really want to preserve that for the neighborhood. Again, I don't know if that means anything to you, but it means something to us. It means something to the neighborhood. It means something to the family that formerly lived there. And that is why we are not showing you that option, because that is sort of, that's something we really do not want to do. So I just want to throw that out there. I wasn't going to throw that sob story out there for you, but that is
No, we appreciate it.
Yeah,
Yeah, no,
something that we're doing.
no, thank you for that.
yeah.
All right, so here we are. Oh, Jonathan.
Thank you. What I was gonna say was just that, there are always other alternatives. I guess the question is, what meets the obligation of an applicant to demonstrate that there are not reasonably practicable alternatives? You can always say, well, just build something smaller. If that's the standard, then there's always an alternative. Just don't build anything at all. That's an alternative. I don't.
Well, I don't think, throwing examples out like that, I don't think are helpful, because that's not where we're at, so.
Well, I guess the point I'm making, Mr. Chair, is that we have a relatively modest house and a 1,000 square foot guest cottage. That when you look at the houses that are currently being built in Concord, I don't think anyone would look at these structures and say, oh, there are a couple of McMansions being built. So I don't think, and I don't think it's fair to tell them we'll just build something smaller. And I also don't think it's fair to say, well, there are other alternatives. We're not going to tell you what they are, but there must be other alternatives. I can tell you that, this has been an exhaustive effort by my clients and their architect and their engineering team to try to come up with something that will work, that will be a home that they'll feel good about, that they're willing to spend the kind of time and money and effort to build. Many of these alternatives, they just wouldn't build because it's not what they want. And so I think they have tried to find alternatives that could work for them. I think the only one that could work that reduces the that further reduces the amount of infringement into the setback area is the one that requires zoning relief. I also question whether it is a reasonably practicable alternative to require an alternative that violates zoning. But we're asked for that approval, and we're willing to proceed with it. I think it would be nice to have an understanding, or it would be fair for my clients to have an understanding of where we go from here, because obviously we're willing, and it seems like the commission wants us to proceed with that request for zoning relief. But we also don't even really have an understanding of whether that's going to be sufficient from the commission's perspective. And I think at some point, fairness dictates that my clients know if they're just throwing more and more money and time down the drain for an unattainable standard.
Understood. Thank you. I appreciate that perspective. So trying to round up the conversation, Bill, Nick, based on an approximately 7 foot plus potential pushback, subject to the ZBA.
Mhm.
I would say in fairness, extensive mitigation on the site. And trying to balance homeowners' needs versus our regulations and policies. I don't know, I guess I would say I feel certainly better with this option. I know it's subject to ZBA, of course, but you know, there's a lot to balance here. So I think I could, I have a general sense that that seems like a good effort on their part and something that I could live with if the ZBA is so willing to grant that relief.
Yeah, it seems that you're going far enough with the alternative to see if it is viable, and that made sense to me.
Yeah.
And then I think they will know.
And they pursued a reasonable number of alternatives.
Yeah.
So we're
Yeah.
comfortable with that.
Yeah, we understand there's alternatives to the cows come home, but we're not here to propose or ask you to do that, so we appreciate the efforts. So I think in fairness, I think you've got a sense from the board that, or the commission, I should say, that we appreciate the efforts. And is it my understanding, Bruce, that you've applied to the ZBA for that potential relief?
Yeah.
Okay, and that's being heard on.
Unfortunately, on June 13th,
Ah,
one day
after.
after your next meeting.
So it sounds as if, given the unfortunate timing, you may want to hold over until,
The 26th.
yes,
Which I assume is your,
no, it'll be 3 weeks after the 12th, right?
Right, it's actually July 10th because the 3 weeks is July 3rd.
Oh, yes.
So I apologize if you have got the drainage information on the plans. I'm not seeing it. There's a lot of notes and some of them refer to drainage, but what I'm looking for is information on what does your outflow look like? Are you doing some sort of, presumably it's an overflow and you're just gonna have like some, planted medium. You're not gonna have a riprap, outfall. An O&M plan, for the Coltech chambers. And just those drainage specifics that we would typically see on the plan.
so if you're at July 10th, you need to have material on the 28th, June. Trying to figure out what,
That's right.
Yeah, that's right. That's Friday week plus before.
Can I ask one question? I'm Chandon Georgian from 111 Works.
Yes, please.
In a similar vein to what Jonathan brought up, if the ZBA were to deny us or not allow it, is there a way to find out how you guys feel about going back to the original plan? If we have to come back with that again?
Why don't we see how it goes on the 10th?
Yeah, right.
We understand you may be a little bit harder between a rock and a hard place at that point, so we understand that as well. But it certainly, I think we'd like to do our best to communicate to ZBA that we're trying to balance here as between two different, a board and a commission. So again, they'll do whatever they feel is most appropriate, but I think we're all trying to balance the needs of the owner with the needs of the board and the commission, so.
On that point, Mr. Chair, I don't know if, I know every town has different protocols. Would the commission ever consider communicating to the zoning board of appeals its preference regarding the application for the
I
setback
don't think
relief?
so, but my sense is, given the relationship of the boards and commissions, they'll get a very good sense of why it's coming back in that form, right? They know our policies, so I think they'll understand that issue readily, if you will.
Fair enough.
And I'm sure Bruce will be a good steward of, transcribing our position with the ZBA. I'm sure you will. Okay.
Thank you for your
Continue
time.
to then, thank you, Bruce.
Do we have a continuation
all.
to the 10?
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, let's see. So new applications this evening. Request for determination of applicability, 1 284 Sudbury Road, RDA file number 24-6. Good evening.
Greetings, Michael Williams, 1284 Sudbury Road. I was looking at Mr. Slatton from, Sampson and McNary. Ah, there he is.
Hi, how are you?
Greetings and felicitations.
All right, you want to give us a brief overview? Whoever would like to.
I'm more than happy to. Let me share
Okay.
my screen here and show you guys, or yeah, Bert can share as well. So formality, my name is Aiden Schlotman with Stamsky and McNary. I'm the representative for the applicant here.
Thank you.
This is just an RDA. So the applicant here just wants to remove their old garage and just build a bigger one in its place. The garage itself and regrading associated with the garage is entirely outside of any buffer zone. But just to make sure that there's nothing that runs off, we do have to put that siltation barrier within the 100-foot buffer. So that's why we're here. You know, we are having that siltation barrier within the 100-foot, and we want to make sure that there's no issue and you guys are aware of what's going on here. But like I said, no work will actually occur within the 100-foot, besides that installation of that siltation barrier.
Okay, thank you. It looks very straightforward.
Straightforward,
So
yeah.
But we appreciate you giving us a heads up.
Yes.
Perfect timing coming after.
There you go.
Absolutely.
Timing is everything.
It sure is.
Nick, Bill, Nick, anything on your end?
Nothing.
Okay.
Wonderful.
Any public comment regarding this application? Seeing none? I do believe we have a quick resolution here.
So
Bill,
I move that we issue a negative determination number 4 for the property at 1284 Sudbury Road, RDA file number 24-6.
Second,
all right, and we'll take the vote. Bill,
Aye.
Nick,
aye,
and I'm an aye.
Good done.
Thank you for
All set.
coming in and good luck with the project.
Thank you all very much. I've learned a lot. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Aiden.
simple projects go quickly.
Yes,
Have that.
all right. Next, new application up this evening is a RDA again for 554 Barrett's Mill Road, RDA file 24-7. Hi,
Seats.
good evening.
Great.
That's Rebecca. She lives on property.
Right.
Good evening. Peter Fulton from 31 Winthrop Street. I want to thank you for your volunteer time.
Thank you.
I've been 29 years on the retirement board in town. You ought to try making difficult decisions with people's money.
Yeah.
As opposed to this, which is equally as upsetting, I suppose. The kids here are, along with Becky's parents, are considering a ADU structure on the
Mhm.
back of their property. We believe they have the satisfactory setbacks and so forth, but we still have to get some answers on septic and so forth. So the question for you folks tonight is this, the jurisdictional or non-jurisdictional component of a pipe or a drain that's in place. This is a fairly extensive plan that was done back in 2006 that I believe is in the file for the home here. Do you have that for?
It wasn't in the
Karen had the
RDA
copy of this,
file.
yeah.
Yeah, we don't have that in the file.
Oh, I got it downstairs from this office. So.
Yeah, but we don't have it loaded up and ready to
Oh,
share.
sorry.
I mean, we have it, but it's not
Okay,
ready to
all
go.
right. I didn't know if you needed for reference, but
Yeah, didn't know you were gonna share that, so
okay.
we're just sharing with the application materials.
Okay, again, it's, this is a new approach to me. I hope to be the, general contractor also.
Okay.
Was on the fire department for 34 years, so.
Yep.
I know the area and so forth, and, tell us what we need to do.
Okay.
So there was a determination on this property maybe 20 or 30 years ago that it was an isolated land subject to flooding. Bert and I have looked at it. Seems like it's an old, farm drainage system, some of which is being filled in, others have not. And so this parcel had a determination as well as the Save Our Heritage parcel, both as isolated land subject to flooding, and that was what it appeared to possibly be, without any flagging or any, real evaluation. So the recommendation would be that it is regulated as an isolated land subject to flooding that does not have a buffer zone around it. So it basically means that you just need to stay outside of that area.
And when you say that area, just that immediate area, or when you
Right,
say area,
so
just
there's
so.
no
we can get
buffer
some guidance.
zone.
Yeah, no, there's no
Yeah,
buffer zone,
it's
so.
just the area that holds
Near the
water.
trench, near the,
Yeah,
Just in the trench.
the
Yeah.
ditch.
In the ditch.
Yeah, in
Yeah.
the ditch,
Yep,
yeah. pretty
yep.
much.
So there's no formal buffer zones, so you don't have
Okay, so the-
mitigation, you don't have any.
Again, I
so-
hate to refer to this, but there was 150 and 25 foot delineations on this. Now, do we have to adhere to that?
No,
No.
No,
You
it's
don't.
just a ditch with some water in it. That we,
well,
Like-
some ditches are regulated and would have a buffer zone.
right, sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so this one is isolated, it's not connected to anything.
Okay, so I mean theoretically.
Can I have your name and address for the record? though?
I'm PJ Fulton, 31 Winthrop Street.
Thank you.
Becky
Just for the
Simpson
record.
is fiance of mine, so
Ah,
we're looking to put the
Congratulations.
Great.
ADU on her property, so. Just for an example, I could put the ADU structure 15 feet away from that ditch if I would like to. I mean, it's not gonna happen, but
You could,
and then that also with the septic, do you have any regulations on where that
I
would
think
go?
that's subject to
that's gonna be a
Board of
Board of Health question.
septic regulations,
Right.
yeah, that's not
Yeah.
us.
Right.
Probably
Okay.
75
Yeah.
feet or something. Okay.
And do we need to revisit you for any kind of siltation, fencing or anything? If this
So
project.
you should
proceeds?
have you should put up siltation.
Right,
to
but do we have to
protect-
revisit you for specifics?
No, you don't.
That's good practice, perhaps.
Sure,
Yeah, I mean,
absolutely.
it's very flat
I
out
fully
there.
intend to,
Yeah.
right.
yeah.
And how about, not breaching this trench, but, that's what I want. A structure over it, access structure,
You mean like a little bridge?
Yes.
Yeah. Something like that.
doable? I'm just,
To the building department.
Or a culvert or something like that.
No, I mean,
Not a culvert.
if you wanted to put like, are you talking like, plywood and some,
no, to be substantial.
what are you talking about?
I was gonna extend the driveway to the ADU and go over it with a bridge. and-
Yeah, for the ADU to have its own parking spot, would it be able to, build something so a car could presumably go over this
Well, they
ditch?
filled
That's,
I mean,
because that's a little different.
We need more.
They
information.
Yeah, we would need some more information on that. If that's something that you would like to do, I would suggest that you
Oop.
refile something
Okay.
with us and with
All right.
with a plan of what you're looking to do.
Okay.
There was some mention of filling ditches. Can they fill the ditch or not? Is the
No.
ditch protected?
So what it looks like is an isolated land. It hasn't been flagged. There's no evaluation. I mean, and it has been determined in the past as an ILSF. So without any real information to work with, we don't have any real,
You can't say what to do.
So what, a wetland scientist would have to go out and evaluate it or what?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So if you wanted to fill it in or do anything that extreme, they would have to.
I mean, bridging it is different than filling it in.
Right.
Yeah.
Sure.
Bridge- Bridging it is more of a possibility then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the
Got it.
fact that this, according to this plan from 2006, it has the outfall pipe has a direct discharge to the town of Concord storm
Yeah,
drain
I know, we
system.
saw that.
Yeah.
We were puzzled by that.
Yeah, well, that's what's amazed me too. But you-
So that was, it's a discharge into the town's.
That's the way I read it, yeah.
storm- Yeah,
Yes,
that's what we
yes.
thought as well.
And
Right,
that makes this, in my opinion, that makes this thing obsolete or close to it.
Mm.
And if it drains and it was legally done back in 2006.
Well, it's got standing water and it's, I mean, we don't have enough information to fully
Okay,
evaluate
so
it.
just so these folks the kids can pursue this, just square us away on the culvert here. Is the potential that we could travel over it,
The ditch.
stay away from filling it?
So
obviously.
with just further information.
Yeah.
So
To keep you updated on
basically-
what our plans are.
Well,
Well,
if you
no,
wanna fill it.
Bridges, the
or
bridge, you
bridge
have to
it,
come back.
you're
to
gonna
us with
come
a
back, yeah.
Specific plan.
Okay,
This is,
Okay.
here's what we're doing.
sure, absolutely, yeah, yep. Okay,
But when I begin to get the architect involved here and laying out this structure, we can construct the 100, the 50 and the 25 as
No,
they
Don't worry
appear.
about that.
Those are
Nothing anymore.
move.
Not for you, after this.
Outstanding. Thank you. You made my evening.
Yeah, there you go.
Thank you. Okay, and will we get some sort of written determination?
We are going to take care of that
Right now.
right now.
With these, okay,
Yep.
so why
It'll
don't,
be mailed out.
How about the
Karen mailed
the
it.
parameters that we've discussed? Will that be?
I think you have to take that and whatever you do, you'll, whether you come back before us or not.
Okay,
You'll have
we
to
can-
look at zoning and.
Right, I can refer to the minutes, can I?
Oh, sure.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
See what we
Yeah.
discussed?
Yeah.
Perfect.
You'll have, yeah, I mean, it won't have all the permit won't have all of this discussion,
Yeah.
the minutes will, but you can always
Sure.
stop in if you have any questions.
Thank you.
Great,
Appreciate
thank
it.
any
you.
other public comments?
Thank you, Bill. Any public comment regarding this application for this project? Seeing none, Bill?
Sure, then I move that we issue a negative determination, number 4, and a positive determination, number 2B. With the finding that the boundaries of the isolated land subject to flooding are not confirmed. And that is for the property at 554 Barrett's Mill Road, RDA file 24-7.
Second,
All right, and the vote, Bill?
Aye.
Nick?
aye,
And I am an aye.
I suppose.
And I'm a.
That's for discussion that when you generated the motion there, will I be able to refer to, is it negative on 2B and positive on 4? Is that
Other
what it-
way,
Negative
The other way.
determination
Other way
at
around.
number 4.
we'll send you that.
And that
Positive
has the,
determination.
okay,
Two
that has the narrative with it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Outstanding.
All right.
Thank you.
All right.
All right,
Thank
thank
you.
you. Thank you very
Yeah.
much.
Everybody stay safe.
Yeah.
You too.
You too. Thank you. All right. Moving on to our next new application, notice of intent, 129-147 Lowell Road LLC, 129-147 Lowell Road, DEP file 137-1673. Good evening.
Evening. We are not proposing an ADU.
Not yet.
Not yet.
All right, what do you have for us this evening?
For the record, Greg Hockmuth from Epsilon Associates, representing the applicant, Energy North. Brian Trombley from Energy North is here. Stephen Lowe, the LSP for the site from Atlas Technical Consultants is here. So it's right next door, the property that we're talking about. There's two parcels, 129 and 147 Lowell Road.
Could we pull that up by chance? Oh, there you go. Thank you, Bert.
Which plan do you want to?
So do you have the one I sent this morning that has the highlighter on it? It was in an email.
This one
I
here?
downloaded it.
No,
So it should be
this
in
one?
it. Yeah,
Well, that one, and there was another one that I put some color on before this email. It just it helps show the buffer zones and where the floodplain is.
Yeah,
it's on the network.
okay, I'll grab it. Yeah.
Well, Bert's finding that, so 129, it's approximately 1.2829 acres in size. And it's currently home to an automotive garage that was constructed sometime around 1965. 147 is right next door, Lowell Road, and that's about, let's see, 147, it has a 2-story office building with a garage that was constructed in 1931. Again, it's about 1.36 acres in size. The entire property is pretty much within your jurisdiction, which you'll see in a moment. And it's home to a lot of above ground storage tanks, and it's had kind of a checkered past with some
Okay,
remediation issues, etc. But the goal is to clean it up, remove all of the existing tanks, and get it at a point where it has a clean bill of health, so that it can be assessed for something else down the road. And that right now, that's to be determined. But the reason we're here tonight, as I mentioned, is just about the entire properties within your jurisdiction. So I'll hold off just till that plan comes
And
out.
just a couple of just background questions. So yeah, is this property a long-term ownership or has it currently transacted?
Yeah, good question. So June of last year, it changed hands.
Okay, new
Yeah.
ownership.
Yep, new
Okay.
ownership. ENI 129 through 147 Lowell Road LLC is now the current owner.
Okay.
And they purchased it from, I believe it was Concord Oil.
And is the new owner an oil person, if you will, or an oil vendor, or are they just a new business looking at perhaps doing something else with the property? Just big background, I don't.
Yeah, so, I don't know, Brian, how do you want to answer that?
Are you familiar with Hafner's up in the Merrimack Valley?
What's that? Excuse
Are you familiar with Hafner's up in the Merrimack Valley?
I am not.
Hafner's? Okay. We are a fuel oil and propane distribution company as well as gas stations, convenience stores, car washes.
Okay.
Yeah, so we purchased the acquisition to expand our footprint.
That's the only
Okay.
one I have.
Thank you for that.
And we are currently
The
operating.
first email I sent this
as-
morning
as
with the
what?
photos? Okay,
A fuel oil company.
okay, thank you. It would have been around 7:30,
I'll check.
7 o'clock.
Well, Concord lost a good business when Kevin retired from,
Oh, yeah.
you know. the
Greg, is
garage
that
and-
the? Sorry. I was just gonna say, Greg, is that the plan that you did, the colors that you shared with me the other day? This is Paris Ballinger from Energy North?
Nope, it's
No,
a
it's a
different one.
Okay.
Yep,
I was gonna say I
Thank
have
you.
that ready if you wanted me to send it. Okay.
thank you.
You're welcome to share it. I see the email, but it's always a little crazy on meeting days.
Oh, yeah.
So there's a lot of emails.
Yeah, no, this was hot off the press.
Yep.
But the plan that we submitted with the notice of intent application was
I don't think I shared this with you guys.
very busy, so yeah, here we go, thank you. So that shows the two parcels.
Zoom in a bit.
There we go. The dark green you see on the top of the screen, that's the bordering vegetated wetland. That's contiguous with the river. There's no riverfront area on this portion of the site, but the BVW is contiguous with the river. There's a berm that was created way back when along that property boundary. And the lighter green you see is the 25-foot no disturb. The yellow is the 100-foot buffer zone. And that blue color is the 100-year floodplain.
What?
So you can see there's really only one spot that's outside your jurisdiction, and that's where the garage building is
Yeah,
on the lower parcel.
amazing.
But the cleanup that we're proposing to do, which Steve's gonna talk about in a minute in more detail, it doesn't involve any filling of BLSF. Whatever's there surface wise now, after the site's cleaned up, we're gonna put back. A good chunk of it's maintained lawn, some of the areas are gravel. We're just gonna return the surfaces back to what they are now. There is a concrete pad out front that has a canopy. That's where there used to be some fuel islands. That concrete pad is gonna be removed and potentially some soil beneath it. We're not sure what we're gonna do there yet. We'd like the opportunity to be able to pave it. But more than likely, it's just gonna remain gravel for now. So it'll be a stable surface post-construction. There is a strange ponded area when you go over with a giant antenna sticking out of it today. That ponded area was a containment basin that was constructed for the property. It's not connected to the BVW, so our Epsilon originally flagged it as an isolated vegetated wetland because for all intents and purposes, it is. It is jurisdictional because it's floodplain. The only activity we're proposing within that containment basin is to remove the antenna and the concrete base that is supporting it.
Could someone point that out just?
Yeah,
so they're on
so
the-
it's, see where it says map 8G lot?
Yeah.
So just to the right of that,
Ooh, ribbons.
just to the right of that, you'll see it's
Oh, well, Control Z.
Seriously. Sorry.
yeah,
Okay, so it's right somewhere in the middle of that.
it is,
Okay.
it is, and that email, if it's not too much trouble, did have some photos too, Delia, if you wanted to pull those up. If not, it's not a problem. Everybody's seen the
Oh, yeah.
the tank farm over there, and
Yeah.
I'm sure you're all gonna be sad to see it go.
Has yet been any assessment of the extent of pollution in the ground?
And that's your cue, Steve.
Yeah, actually, this site has been investigated for
Steve,
like,
can I just your name and
Yeah.
address for the record?
Steve Lowe from Atlas Technical
Thank you.
Consultants. Yeah. The property has been investigated and there's been various portions of the property that have been remediated over the years. So there's been a number of iterations of assessment and we'd sent I don't know if you have the the other plans, there were a couple other
The
plans.
boring plan?
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be.
I think Bert has those.
You do great.
Where are
This
your
is our fault.
laptops, by the way?
We sent these all this morning to Delia.
Send them to Karen. She's
Yes,
like,
one here.
she's the anchor
Well,
of
that,
all
that's,
the files.
that one, and there's, one other one.
Was it the one that went in with the NOI?
No, it was one that, I sent
So I
to
think the
you this
first one that
morning
you
that I
had
think
up.
you forwarded.
Oh, okay.
Right? The first one that was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Up just now?
Okay.
It was a black and white.
It had some color on it.
Not-
Okay,
not-
so I think the one that you would,
Yeah, but, so this plan shows some recent work that was just done last year. And the purpose of this was like a pre-acquisition investigation to kind of get a handle and verify, some of the prior data that had been collected and just make sure there were no significant data gaps or significant changes that would be problematic, for the new owner.
And just had, sorry to interrupt,
Yeah.
but where you show borings on the other map, I see a lot of blue dots, which were monitoring wells, or were those all done last year?
Yes.
Okay, so and Delia, just correct me, but being in the floodplain and they're doing diligence, right? Due diligence, I assume.
Mm.
Would you typically be notified of that if it's in a resource area?
yeah,
Or,
I mean, typically,
They were temporary. And
right, typically.
Yeah.
Like in the buffer zone, exploratory borings are fine. In
Yeah.
a resource area, it's something we would at least need notification of, but that's just.
that's just the future.
For future,
FYI, if you-
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the good news is the new filing does propose to remove and or install new monitoring wells if needed. So we're hoping to get permission for any new borings or wells as part of this application. And are those located on the plan? So it's not clear where they're gonna go yet. It's kind of a moving target. You know, and it's.
Preliminary findings on pollution, or what?
Yeah, so there's, I mean, there's like, I have a 16-page table of prior analytical data. They were tested for volatile organic compounds. They were tested for extractable petroleum hydrocarbons, which
Mhm.
would be associated with the fuel oils.
Sure.
And then VPH, the volatile petroleum hydrocarbons for gasoline
For vapor,
constituents,
yeah.
as well as heavy metals. So it's been a fairly comprehensive testing program. And unfortunately, I guess the other plan that we have that shows some of the, the site has been peppered, literally.
Mhm.
So there's quite a bit of data that's been collected over the years. And, what we don't know is, and as they remove these above ground storage tanks, obviously those have been a limit to some of the investigation in that area. So part of what we hope to do is collect some additional data, and that will help drive some of our, the notion and extent of what we plan to, address in terms of remediation. So currently, our goal is to remove, any, significant areas of residual petroleum compounds that are in the soil in that area. Interestingly, it's mostly a soil problem where we find residual concentrations. Groundwater is largely not impacted. So what's there is tied up in the soil, and because it's mostly superficial in nature, most of it is, the highest concentrations are shallower. And so in a rough cut, we're imagining that in that area where the tanks are gonna be taken down, that we may take, up to maybe 3 feet of material, just in terms of rough discussion. But obviously.
You'll chase it though, once you get going.
Right, and we do have a body of data that has, that characterizes some of the soil that will be, working in that area, so we have some known information. But we'll be, collecting some additional to fill some of the gaps.
Okay. And we do have, we were able to locate the temporary stockpile area outside of the floodplain. We shoehorned it in, you see it.
You did. Yeah, so you can see that kind of like triangular,
Yeah.
roughly triangular shape area there.
And, you know, any soil would be placed on poly and surrounded by a 12-inch mulch sock. And if it has to stay there for a prolonged period so that it can be tested, it would be covered
Yeah.
with poly as well. And as a contingency, we've got a spot that we can set up frac tanks if needed. That would be behind the garage. It's that long rectangle you see
Yeah,
below the stockpile area.
Yep.
But it's hard, you know, because we don't really know what we're gonna find yet, so it's hard to explain to the commission exactly what it's gonna look like. But what we can
And,
tell you,
and in general, if we are fairly limited in most of our excavation to 3 feet, that'll be largely above the water table, but the crazy weather patterns we have, when we get inundated, this is a low-lying area, and so we could have water that we may need to deal with, so that's why we've included that frac tank as a contingency for managing water if we need to, but we're hoping to avoid it if we can. Right.
And just a question about that, like if you have a high groundwater condition and you don't anticipate, or you don't think that right now you have any impacts of contaminants in the groundwater, but then you have a high groundwater and you're excavating, and now you have this interface of contamination with the groundwater, what does that mean?
Well, anytime you're excavating, if you get down into the water table, you increase the likelihood of transfer from
Right.
soil to water, which is why we would conservatively manage that by containerizing it and
Frac tank.
frac tank and likely what we would end up doing is just hauling it off site and for proper treatment.
So is that, like, you're excavating, you anticipate groundwater, or the water table is 3 feet down? You hit it at 2.5 feet water, 2.5 feet, and so then you just immediately start pumping into a frac tank?
What
Is
we
that
would,
that
what
looks
we
like?
would probably do is, before we got to that point, they'll have equipment out there when they take down the tanks, and I'm not sure what the time frame would be between the end of the decommissioning of the tanks and the beginning of the excavation, but we'd certainly use the equipment on site to excavate a test pit and just see where we're at in terms of depth of water. And typically, if we're trying to remove impacted soil, what we would do is install a sump.
Mhm.
And so to drain the water
Sure.
away from our excavation area,
Right.
so we're not making a big wet sloppy mess.
So do you
And you've
know,
got, oh, sorry,
no, go.
but you've got some monitoring wells set up now too, right?
Oh,
So
yes.
you can gauge
Yes.
the
Not-
elevation. as
There's
well.
not, I don't think there's any viable wells right in that area, but around it for sure.
Yeah, my guess is
Yeah,
knowing, hopefully geology
Yeah.
is gonna
it's gonna
hold
be pretty
true, hopefully.
close.
Yeah,
if we dig a hole on the other side of that dike in the wetland and we see water down 6 inches, that's probably gonna be the same water table
Yeah.
elevation.
I would
Yeah.
agree.
Right.
Except
Give
you're
or
not gonna be
take.
digging a hole in the wetlands.
Yeah.
Just look, it's all mapped as Udorthans, but it's probably well-drained gravel that was placed back.
Right,
So what I'm hearing though is that there's kind of an unknown element, which we understand, right? Because you don't know exactly what's impacted exactly, if anything. So we're not exactly sure the exact location if you have to excavate and get some of that out of there. Or we're not sure exactly where you might put additional borings as well. Is that fair to say?
I would say yes.
Yeah, I mean, and it might, I would say probably once the tanks are decommissioned, we might, pick some locations to go in there with the equipment that was already on site, probably to do some test pits.
Mhm.
And then backfill them, but we collect some samples and then backfill it. So that will allow us to kind of formulate our excavation plan once we get that data back.
So I guess my question would be, it sounds like there's gonna be a lot of discovery. You're gonna learn things as you go.
Well,
as you
certainly,
into the
yeah,
ground. So
when
my-
you're taking a big tank like this,
Yeah,
it's not uncommon
right,
to
right.
find something you didn't
Understand.
necessarily know about in advance.
So is there some ongoing component to what's gonna happen so that regular reporting to natural resources or anything? I mean,
So this work would be conducted in accordance with the MCP, the Massachusetts Contingency Plan, and this would be done under a release abatement measure, a RAM plan. And we'll be submitting that hopefully not too far off in the future. And the reporting that would be required for the MCP, we would obviously provide to the commission as well.
So when is that, what's the schedule for that RAM plan?
Well, we're still trying to get the PRP transfer, the permit transferred to the new owner, so that has not, we've had some difficulty in
Making that happen?
making that happen.
So does it make sense to hold off on issuing this until the RAM plan is submitted and concurrently, submit that to us
Mhm.
once you have that, because that will have additional detail that maybe we don't have currently in the filing, right?
I think that's what I was getting
Yeah.
at, which
Yeah.
is that I don't know what we're approving, given the
That's right.
conditionality of what's gonna happen.
Well,
in 6 months.
really what I guess what we're asking for is approval of the process that we intend to follow.
Yeah.
Because this filing does include the provisions that we would be following that will also be repeated in the RAM plan. So the provisions are here. And we're gonna have the same issue that we have in this filing that we will in the RAM plan, in that it's not fully defined.
Right.
We talk about in here that we'll have, siltation and fence around our excavation area. We'll have the, stockpile area, like, Greg was saying, outside the, resource area, and then, covered with poly, we'll have, silt fence or wattles around it. And, we'll be collecting confirmatory soil samples following excavation. And I'm just trying to think if there's, what other details that, you would be interested in that aren't in here that would be in the RAM plan. I
So
don't.
it sounds like
there's a
conditions
lot.
would include things like the creation of the RAM plan and submission of that and regular reporting of some sort.
I think the only question that I have, or the question that I have is that, like you said, I'm not sure what the commission is approving of it, and I understand the process.
Yeah.
Yeah, when's it fulfilled? When does the order of conditions get released? What would?
I think you'd be receiving something from DEP saying the RAM plan, right? You're gonna.
It's a presumptive approval, so we don't get we
Oh,
don't,
that's true under a RAM.
right.
Right. Yeah.
And
The
even
LSP.
even when we're done, all we do is we put together a completion report
Right.
that DEP is not gonna approve or chime in on.
Yeah.
We'll just present our results.
That's right.
Well, then the
It's an
question-
LSP driven
Correct.
issue.
Yes.
Yes.
Ultimately, what are the conditions for a certificate of compliance? Right, if you're into, that's. what the
Well,
question is.
you have an as-built plan, but what do you have on,
Stabilization would be one major component.
right?
Even with the fact that there is a dike there and we'd have to really fill up to go over Lowell Road with any sediment, I think you'd still have to stabilize the buffer zone.
Yeah, I guess in the biggest of pictures, we understand that you may not know all the contamination on site, although typically, the borings would lead you to believe, you start to define that by the borings, right?
Yeah.
As you.
Oh, no, I
see
mean,
the
we
impacts and stuff.
definitely know.
So you got a general sense of it already.
Yes.
Right? So it's not
Yes.
like the expectation is something goes awry and all of a sudden we're seeing, 30-foot mounds out there
No.
and the whole site is being excavated and.
And
right,
Atlas is
listen,
gonna be there
You got a general sense
Yeah.
of
the whole
what,
time.
okay.
They're not just gonna give the order of conditions to a contractor and say, remove all this stuff.
Yeah,
It's
well,
gonna
I mean,
be-
under our MCP obligations, we'll have personnel on site to
Right.
do monitoring.
Yeah.
And like I said, we'll be collecting soil samples, post excavation to document the remaining concentrations. And, be able to, basically document the process. And then upon completion, as Greg alluded to, the plan is we'll put in some clean fill and then top dress with stone or gravel.
Yeah.
As is current plan.
What standard are you trying to clean this up to?
We're not, that's also an unknown because right now we're going after source removal.
Mm-hmm.
And not a specific, level
Okay,
because the, future plans are not confirmed.
okay. All right. So. Are we,
You need a standard that you're bringing it to before you can create plans for what you're gonna do with it. Right?
No, source removal
mean,
is
like-
a objective in and of itself.
Okay,
yeah, then you'll have to take the next step depending on the
Correct.
use that you may want
Correct.
to pursue or
Yeah.
not pursue, right?
Correct, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
Mr. Chairman, one other aspect of this is, when Delia blew the dust off the folder for this property, she found two outstanding permits. One of them goes back to, I think, 75 and the other one was 79.
Mhm.
So the good news is we were able to have GPI, who's the project engineer, confirm that both permits are in substantial compliance.
Right.
The work was minor,
Mhm.
and we submitted COC requests for both of those outstanding permits.
Okay, yep, I see them on the agenda. Thank you for that. So,
So for this, I guess, we don't have an order prepared. And this is a little, I don't do a lot of, this
environmental.
kind of
Yeah.
environmental remediation
Yeah.
work, and I wouldn't mind just having a conversation with our engineering department to see if they have any other, thoughts that, may be helpful, and maybe I can follow up with you, after this meeting.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think to Nick's point, where it's a little amorphous in terms of,
Yeah.
what we typically look at, which is
Yeah.
fairly detailed and everything is
Yeah.
typically pinned pretty tightly.
Yeah.
So
Right.
I hope you can appreciate that a little
Yeah,
bit too, as we
of course,
kind of
sure.
feel our way through this a little bit, but we certainly think certainly I can just say it's obviously a positive thing, right?
Yeah,
We're
sure.
cleaning up a site, so that's great.
Yeah, yeah.
Right,
I
so,
want you to do it.
yeah,
Yeah.
so,
No, we understand completely.
and I just think it's, we're just trying to get some toehold in terms of, some baseline, where you might end up and what we can expect generally, so.
Right.
So Deal, you good with having a further conversation with them, getting a little bit of understanding of the RAM
Yeah, if you have-
aspect, that might be helpful too.
Where are you at with the grant plan right now?
And we have a draft version of it.
Yeah. Are you willing to share that?
Um,
It's fine if you're not, I know. drafts
well,
are
I guess
big.
I'd need to just check with.
Yep, fair enough.
client.
Of
Yep.
course,
Um,
yeah.
And it's okay if you're not.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand.
Yeah.
Sometimes things just need to be finalized before they go out.
Yeah.
I do think it would be helpful, and engineering might, be interested in, I don't know, I mean, I'm not sure if they would or they wouldn't, but,
Okay.
let me check
Yeah,
with them.
yeah, sure.
And then, we can follow up.
Would you be okay continuing to the next meeting of June 12th?
Is June 12th?
I think it is.
Mhm.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
if I could ask a couple of questions?
of course.
Yeah.
Mike, if I could just have your name and address for the
Yes,
record?
absolutely. I'm Mike Kutu. I live next door to Concord Oil at 169 Lowell. And
Great.
yeah, so I'm obviously curious and interested in this project, not dissatisfied or displeased that the tanks might be disappearing. But I do have, I do have a few questions.
All right.
If I could, and if it's not an appropriate time for these questions, and
No,
they
no,
should
no.
be asked later,
Please.
that's fine. Is the current business operation being terminated? So is Concord Oil no longer functioning?
No, they're fully operational.
Okay. And that will continue during this remedial process?
Yes,
Okay, so the truck parking, which is currently, I believe, in the buffer zone where most of the trucks are parked, is that going to continue during this phase?
I believe we're reviewing that. Right now, we are working on development of another site to have those staged off of this property.
Okay,
But I can't say definitively whether or not they will be here during this process or not. We are working to remove them from this property.
okay. Will the test results, I think I kind of heard the answer to this, be provided to the commission? And I guess that would go with the RAM plan as well. Would that be available for our
Yes.
purview?
Yeah, it's all public.
Yeah, it's all public record.
Okay. What is the timing of this project, if you get all of your approvals, not only in terms of a start time, but also in terms of duration? Do we have any sense at all? Is this a 3-month project, a 3-year project? Just a sense of how long the experts think this project may take, this first phase. I understand that this is the first phase and that there are alternate development potential being considered, and that's not part of this. I understand that. But for this particular application, do you have a sense of time?
So the actual demolition, we anticipate to be approximately 30 days. Now, that's highly contingent upon what is found or
Mhm.
not found. The actual demo itself will not take that long period of time.
The demo of the tanks and the pads and that sort of thing. The
Correct, yes.
mediation may take additional time, depending on what you find.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so there's a likelihood we may be seeing mounds of dirt covered with plastic for a substantial period of time?
No,
Just
I
based-
wouldn't, well, I guess it depends on your definition of substantial, but.
Well, I've seen some sites where it's gone years. And
Yeah,
I'm just,
no.
It's a RAM
Okay.
plan.
Yeah.
You can keep moving.
Yeah,
Okay.
in fact, it's supposed to be off-site within 120 days.
Okay.
And we don't anticipate that even.
okay, good. That gives me some barometer of as
Yeah.
to what to expect as the abutter, as your direct abutter. And you're
Understood.
only residential abutter, so.
Yeah.
Let me just see if I had any, so timing was a question, sort of what the impact is going to be on not just the neighborhood, but people passing through Concord every day. There's a good amount of traffic here, so just curious as to what that's gonna look like for a period of time. And then I would expect, once this phase is done, you'll be submitting plans to whatever boards, commissions, for whatever your intended reuse of the property will be.
Yeah, well, as I mentioned before, the entire site's within the NRC's jurisdiction, so anything
Right.
that's done on this property.
It's gonna be back
gonna
here.
come back before this group and possibly other groups as well.
Right.
And you'd be notified as a direct abutter.
Understood. Okay, those are just some basic questions I had. I want to stay on top of this and, like I said, I'm not displeased to see this getting cleaned up. And hopefully the future use of the property will be something that's more desirable.
Mike, thank you for all the questions, all good questions. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Is there any other public comment out?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
my name is Jonathan Peckham. I'm the manager for Concord Lumber at 126 Lowell Road.
good evening.
Good evening. So a number of years ago, under prior management, when that location was converted from oil to natural gas, when they were digging on site, I'm told that they found potentially some oil in the soil when they were doing the digging there. So I guess I would like to inquire guidance from the NRC and or the applicant as to what, if any, testing would be done on our property across the street.
Well, nothing as far as this particular project. If there's, other aspects that are, that have not been addressed on, you're saying this is on your property?
Well, that's correct, and I'm going under the assumption that in the area they were digging, it was remediated, but I've been instructed by my bosses to attend the meeting and inquire about any future liability should we dig on our property and find oil that had gone across the street. And I understand that you're the new owners and so forth, or the representatives of the new owners. But we're obviously trying to ascertain what we can or should do and any guidance from the NRC too.
Okay. I would assume in the RAM plan, there'd be perhaps some more information or
Well, probably not about that issue, because
are they down gradient? Is that a or not?
They're not really, but I mean, I know that historically there was investigation and they did find. And I'm not, I guess I'd need to be more specific in terms of what area he's referring to, but.
Yeah.
I know, historically there was impact across the street. And there has been a number of excavations and remedial excavations conducted on site to remove the source of it. And I know they've done extensive monitoring over the years and have demonstrated concentrations have decreased. I'm not sure exactly where this gentleman's referring to. I guess maybe, I could get some more information and.
Well, and I don't want any of you to get the impression I'm accusing anybody of anything here. I just want to get some information myself.
Yeah.
So the property, my understanding is where the excavation was done. If you're facing the lumberyard, it was on the left side of the property. If you look at that building, you'll see where the gas meter is right on the front left corner of the building. So there was excavation done from the road to where that is.
And just so I'm not confused, is it on?
I'm gonna pull this up.
Okay.
Jonathan, give me 1 second. I'm just gonna pull this up on,
Okay, thanks.
no. Yeah.
So it was the trench from the road to the meter.
To the gas meter on the lumber
That's my
building?
understanding, yes.
This is on the lumberyard site, correct?
So you're across the street.
We're
from-
across the street, yes. So if you are facing our property, it's gonna be on the left front corner of the property.
Gotcha.
So I would expect that there was some, like we're discussing tonight, that there was some sort of RAM plan that was done back in the day, and there was probably some RAM completion report, that I'd be more than happy to,
Okay.
help, address with you.
Okay.
Thank
So
you.
yeah, that would be great in terms of as you look back and maybe you'll
Right.
come across something, if maybe you could address it next meeting or just touch on it,
Sure.
if that's possible by way of the research and timing.
Mr. Chairman, if I could ask another question?
Yes, please.
Yeah, Mike Kuto again, thank you. I think to follow up with the gentleman from Concord Lumber's question, I do sit down gradient of Concord Oil. And who inherits the liability if there has been seepage of oil onto my property, either, historically? Where does that liability fall and how does that get mitigated?
I'll let the LSP address that question.
Thank you.
Well, I guess the answer is not straightforward, but obviously the MCP requires that cleanup is conducted in accordance with their standards, and that is to achieve a condition of no significant risk. The site is currently
To whom? Risk to whom?
to if it's impacted on a residential property, it's to that resident.
Mhm.
If it's on the site, it's specific to the location where the impact is located.
Mhm. So if your borings find that along that vegetative buffer, you have had contamination, it would be reasonable to expect that my parcel it didn't stop at the property line.
No, but actually wetlands are actually pretty good at bioremediation.
Yeah.
They sure do.
They actually are known, and it's well documented, that they do, in fact, break down petroleum constituents over time.
They flush
So
it
it
out.
doesn't necessarily follow. I mean, I'm not
Mhm.
saying it couldn't, but
I will say that I did a recent septic project and we did not encounter anything, but that's where that is quite a distance from the property line. I'm more concerned with the additional lot that I have between Concord Oil and my current house. I'd just be curious to know what those borings show.
Steve, I would assume that in your RAM report, you would show any borings that you've done and what you've found in those borings. Is that appropriate to say, or?
it's probably more than what, we would certainly discuss what we have for information in our proposed work area.
Yeah.
But it wouldn't necessarily discuss, impacts that are not related to this project that are, kind of along the perimeter and potentially offsite.
No, I understand that, but if you end up chasing something, there'll be some further direction, if you will, if you end up chasing something.
Oh,
That
you know,
may lead to a
that
different-
comes out of our
Yeah.
work, yes.
Yeah, that's all.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it may be helpful or not to the homeowner, depending on what you
Correct.
find on site.
Right.
Okay,
Mhm.
okay. Any other questions from the public? Okay.
One more.
Sure.
Sorry.
Why not?
Is there any way for the applicant to have, I mean, and I know this gets a little testy, I'm used to doing conservation work, so I understand, but is there any way where we can be informed other than through the hearings as to what some of the findings are? Particularly along that the shared property line?
Yeah, I mean, it is like, I think it was mentioned before, all the information that's been generated to date is all public record and it's available on the state website.
The DEP website.
Yeah, environmental affairs.
Yep.
Was it E?
Yeah, EDO, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's not
It's not
DEP?
EDP, that's for filing only if.
No,
you-
no, not EDEP, but
Oh.
just DEP. No?
No,
It's
they moved
EEA.
it, yeah.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So where is it located?
Office of Environmental Affairs.
Okay, yep.
And if you did a Google search for Bureau of Waste Site cleanup files, you'd probably find a link there.
Okay.
Thank you, Mike.
Yes, thank you.
All right.
Thank you for your time tonight too. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you for the questions. So we good for continuing
Next
out?
meeting? Yep.
Yep. All right. Thank you very much for the overview and some of the details. We appreciate that.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. I think we're up to a closing issue.
Yes.
Let's see.
What do we have?
I think about the COC request, or is that later? Oh, no, we could
We're gonna do
Do
that.
now?
Yep.
we could do that now.
Yep.
Sure, okay, yeah, great, thank you. Adelia, you want to talk just briefly about those, or do you want?
Yes, so we did get true copy attests for those projects. There was information submitted that it was within substantial compliance with the permits. And so we are recommending that those
Those two?
COCs are issued. There's also an original, where there was an order of conditions for one of these two, and I don't recall which one, 27 or something.
Okay,
That was not recorded, so we have a true copy attest from the town clerk for that.
Ah.
So all three of those will be recorded, to basically clear
clear it out.
clear the-
Okay,
yeah,
and then we have
uh,
one for Stowe Street as well.
Yes.
Okay,
Okay,
it's a
so
separate
motion?
matter,
Motion?
please.
Move, we issue certificates of compliance for 129, 147 Wall Road. Two certificates, one for DEP file number 137-27 and the other for DEP file number 137-79.
No, I second that.
Take the vote, Bill,
Aye.
Nick,
Aye.
and I am an aye as well. Thank you very much. Yep, appreciate you cleaning that up. Thank you.
Good night.
You
You too.
We have one more.
One more.
And I also, move that we issue certificate of compliance for Fadden, 195 Stowe Street, DEP file number 137-260.
All right,
Oh, I second that.
thank you. And take the vote, Bill,
Aye.
Nick,
Aye.
and I am an aye as well. All right, going back to close an issue, I think order of conditions, correct?
Yes.
All right,
I move that we close and issue an order of conditions for DEP file number 137-1670, which address is that?
67 Eleanor.
67 Elsinore.
Yep.
Street. And with finding A, standard conditions 1 through 20 and special conditions 21 through 56.
I second that.
All right, and the vote, Bill,
Aye.
Nick,
All right.
and I am an aye as well. That's what you're looking for, right? Off we go. Delia, emergency cert.
So just one, I issued to the homeowners at 131 Martin Road. They have a very small dam breach that's causing some flooding of their property. And so it's basically just to remove the obstruction by hand and, remove it outside of the 25-foot no disturb
Are
zone.
they restoring the dam or removing the dam or?
They are gonna be removing the dam. I think it was like a practice dam. It looks like an old beaver dam.
Oh,
It's
an old
very,
beaver
it's-
dam.
it's
Yeah.
old. Well, I don't think it's that old, but maybe probably 6 months or so. I think the
Oh.
homeowner was away and came back and, yeah.
Surprise.
Yeah.
All right. No issues, guys? All good?
No.
No, that's good.
Okay. Down to other business. Emerson Thoreau Art Ramble.
Mhm.
All right, who do we have this evening?
Hi, I'm Stephanie Marlin Curiel. I'm from the Umbrella Arts Center. I'm the visual arts manager. And with me is Marla McLeod. Hi, Marla.
Hello, Marla McLeod.
Evening.
Marla's the curator of the exhibition that we're proposing. Oh,
right.
so I continue with our
Sure, if you want to give us a brief overview of what you're thinking, and this is for the only for the 250th, correct?
Right. I mean, we have talked about, we've thought about what would it mean to extend art rambles in the future, but that's not what this meeting is about. We're just really talking about next year's art ramble in this meeting.
Okay.
And it is because it is themed on along the lines of the 250th, and it will be included in 250th programming. And for that reason, we would like to extend the duration so that we can be sure to sort of line up and have as many resonances as possible with 250 programming, and to be able to extend the community engagement activities. I know that you have all been given a description of the project ahead of time, along with letters of support from our partners, the Robbins House and Walden Woods Project. But I'll just give the brief overview as you requested, that this is a project that will take place in a different portion of the woods from the art ramble that we have done traditionally in partnership with Concord Natural Resources for many years now. Started before I started at the at the Umbrella, which was only 2.5 years ago. Traditionally, we've done the art ramble in the Fairyland pond vicinity. This time, we would like to focus on Thoreau's Path area. But in order to access that Thoreau's Path area, we need to lead people, through from the main parking lot down Thoreau's Path. The path around Fairyland Pond, and that goes along the
So
south
Stephanie,
side of the pond. Sorry.
Does
Yes, go ahead.
do you,
Yes.
you can share a map, or do you want us to share a map?
That would be helpful. That would be great. Yeah. Thank you. Great. So if we can, are you able to enlarge it? Or
Should
do I
be.
just need to enlarge my screen? All right. Well,
I think
if everyone can see that.
No,
It's
I
unclear.
can't.
Can't
I
see it.
can't zoom in on
Doesn't she have to enlarge it?
it.
Yeah, I think you would have to enlarge it by using the command and then plus sign.
Oh, there's.
There you go.
There it is. Thank you.
There we go. Okay. So the red arrow indicates where the parking lot is.
Oops, hang on.
Okay, so visitors would enter here and proceed down the path to where it splits off. Go to the right side of Fairyland Pond, and there's a bench area, and then it takes that transition trail. Actually, that trail probably has a name. What's the name of that trail there, Delia?
It's part of the Bay Circuit Trail. Yeah.
Okay, right. And goes by the
Christie's Creek.
accessible parking lot, right? And Brister Hill Monument. And then it goes into a field there, which I understand is still Concord under the jurisdiction of Concord Natural Resources, all of this, until you get to Thoreau's Path, until you start at Thoreau's Path. So from the parking lot and down that circuit trail, we would propose to either put some of the artworks or simply fabric trail markers. Is that right? Marla, do you want to talk a little bit about those? What you had in mind?
Yes, so in order to keep people on the path for this specific installation, I was thinking of creating some sort of marker with some information about the space, about the land and the inhabitants, to mark the path for the viewers of this exhibition. So essentially they would be like cloth, and then they would be tied around the tree, so something very visible for people to be able to see.
Yeah.
And
But
then
either you or Wendy, you were proposing, might create these, and both of them are very fine textile artists. So it wouldn't just be a ribbon tied around a tree.
we are textile artists, and we might work in tandem with each other on those, but they also would be in and of themselves art pieces. Yes.
Right.
All right.
And then in the field there, we were proposing some artwork.
Yes, and in the field, we are proposing for the cabin, the mannequins, and another artist's textile works to go with the cabin in that space.
And when you say the field, is that, I'm sorry.
So this is Walden Street
Yep.
and Route 2, right? So if you're looking in, there's that nice gate that, and it's just beyond that gate. It's sort of right in
So
this
it's still in
area
the
here.
jurisdiction.
Yeah, sort of
It's on
gravelly.
town conservation
Okay.
lands. So all the dark green.
Yeah.
Is the town conservation land, and this is the Walden Woods project.
Okay,
Property here.
gotcha.
And as you saw in the support letter, the Walden Woods project is very happy to have this exhibition on the trail there, and it goes along the trail to the reflection circle as marked here for that duration that we've proposed from April through October. So we're just trying to find out whether Concord Natural Resources would also be able to change our normal time frame. That would mean we would not have an art ramble this fall, but for next year to start in April 2025, and have the trail markers and the pieces of art we're proposing for the field live from April 2025 through October, beginning of November 2025.
So that's over 7 months. I thought it was a 6-month ask.
Well, it can
I
be
guess
April through October. It doesn't have to go into
long-
November. So what is it?
long-
April, May, June, July, August, September,
Yeah.
October. Well, I mean,
But I
the
just- I
fall
just had a question
season
about-
normally goes through October. That's why I said that, but it would need to stop in September. That's also okay at the end of September.
So I guess I
September.
just have a question, like with textiles and 6 months in the elements, what does that mean? What does that look like?
Yes, that is something, as the artists, we are thinking about the longevity of that, but looking at other art projects that have gone along the same routes, they should be able to last a 6-month period in that space. Though there may be some deterioration, there may be some color washing because of the
Right.
sunlight and the elements and things like that, but ultimately they should be able to last through the 6-month period on the trees.
But if there's a problem, if they don't,
So will somebody be, if they degrade more quickly than you're anticipating, I mean, is somebody looking at those and replacing or?
We could totally do that. Absolutely. We can make it a schedule. That would be me to go in and occasionally look in on those and make sure that they are keeping up.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you mentioned cabin and some other elements. Would the cabin, for example, be going in the Walden Woods area?
That would be in the field,
Ah,
right
okay,
there
well,
by the Rose path.
Right. So it would be helpful for things that are going on the town lands. I mean, generally what we've seen in the past, and I think things sort of fell apart a little bit with COVID. And then there was some change in staff, Stephanie, that I'm sure you're aware of. But we would see what the, somebody would curate the project and then we would see what the proposals were. So we had some, ability to, at least understand what they were going to be. And I think it would be helpful, like if you're talking about a cabin, how is that being constructed? Is there equipment that's coming in? Or
is it pre-built? Is it?
Right.
Coming in
those
with wall sections and being
the-
snapped into place or,
The cabin is actually hand built, so people do come in and build that up. The artist that works on that cabin, they do work on temporary cabins. That's like their thing, right? It's like pretty much their body of work. There's some imagery of that Stephanie did.
I wasn't able to get it in ahead of time, and also the one that you prepared for today, those images are a lot bigger. I don't think we'd be able to see them on the original. So is Marla allowed to share screen?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Okay.
we can show some of that work then.
It totally should.
Yeah, we don't have to go into too much detail.
I would just suggest that once you have an idea of what you're looking to construct, that you submit it, and if it's something that's like, larger than I don't know, I mean, give
Shed.
me, larger
Thoreau's
than a
cabin,
shed
for
or
example.
Thoreau's cabin or something like that. That it may then need to come back and I can bring it back to the commission, but I think we just need to get some specificity around what some of this might look like.
Okay, I have some, with the cabin, we have some
Yep.
imagery of the previous
Sure.
cabin.
No, that's okay, but I think
Oh,
if
no?
but I think it might be more helpful as you get further into the project and you define that cabin. That's the time to bring it forward, because again, we could look at a lot of images and, okay, but I think we're more concerned about the specifics of this particular installation.
Okay.
I think, and again,
Where it's gonna be placed.
where it's gonna be placed
Yeah.
and how it's gonna get built,
How it's gonna be
right?
built. Yeah.
Equipment,
How long it'll
tools.
take.
Well, by hand, Marla, you said by
Yeah.
hand, right?
They do build by hand. Yes, they have. She usually has a group of people come in. A lot of the wood that they actually use to build it's very specific. She covers them with material in a blue material that she's done. So it's a whole process to build the entire cabin. And they're quite small. And the specificity, I know the specificity of this would be about a 10 by 12. That is the scale of the cabin that they're referencing.
All right, that's good to know.
I also noticed that there was a reference to potentially live performances. And again, that's something that I would be a little hesitant on conservation land.
Yeah.
I just don't, I don't know what that means. I don't know crowd control, how popular they would be. There's a lot of unknowns with that, so if it happens on the Walden Woods, I think that's kind of out of our jurisdiction. Is that fair to say?
I think that's fair to say. I mean, I think just so you guys understand, from the perspective of, the NRC and staff, we steward this land for everybody, right? So there are walkers and there are runners and there are, people who are just out there just to
And there are other,
nature bathe.
and there are other critters. I mean, this is an
Well,
emergent, this is emergent springtime. There are creatures that'll be nesting and emerging from.
That's
Right.
Good point.
Yeah.
Exactly. So
So we want to be sensitive to that too.
yeah, right. So we need to, I think everybody here is, in favor of
Yeah.
art as a concept and the work that the umbrella does.
Yeah.
But
It's a little,
we need to sort of,
it's a little
manage
carte
this for
blanche here
everybody. Yeah,
versus,
right.
most plans, we have everything nailed down and, we understand the concept, we appreciate that, but I
Yeah.
think we can get, as Delia said, a little bit more specificity downstream a little bit. That would be helpful to the
Yeah.
commission to make sure that we're all being good stewards of the
Yeah.
conservation land.
Yeah, and I guess it's a consequence is the more different elements you bring in, like art and buildings and performances, the more complicated it gets. That's all. Just.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, I think that's a good point. And I think we're talking, are we comfortable also with the 6-month span? Question.
Yes, I mean, I'm comfortable, but willing to do it this year. That's how I feel about it.
I would share that perspective too. I think it's a long period of time to have anything up in a conservation area. So I would think this is the exception, to the so-called annual aspect of it.
Yeah.
So I think it'd be helpful from that standpoint, Stephanie, to send us actual dates of what you want that installation timeframe to look like.
There's a lot of precedent issues here.
Yeah, no,
What's
there
that?
really is.
Precedence is the issue.
Yeah, there's, right, precedence is an issue, but it's also, you know, I mean, I don't know if I've mentioned this or not, Stephanie, I don't always agree with it, but I do get calls from people saying, I just walked through town forest and I'm offended that I didn't have my nice nature walk, you know, and
It's,
that's a.
there's
that's
both
a
sides of the
perspective.
coin, right? Sure, that's human nature.
Right.
There we are. So, okay.
So I guess in that respect, publicizing it beforehand so that it's less of a surprise to people would be a good idea.
Mhm.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, there should be plenty of, I guess, sort of, what is the word you just used? The letting the public know. I do have some word from, one of the curators at the De Cordovas. They are also working with the Thoreau project at that time, so I'll be working with some of them as well. So that getting the word out.
Yeah, we hope this will be a very synergistic with so many other projects happening in the area. That we hope to have a lot of good cross-pollination. And the area on the Concord Natural Resources ground will be a very low footprint, and the fabric markers, as we said, really just being guideposts and almost like trail markers, but should not interfere with nature experience. The bulk of the project is really going to be on Thoreau's path, and that includes the performance aspect, unless she was doing performance right outside the cabin. I wasn't sure.
I don't think that.
but it's
So, yeah,
Yeah, I'm not
so
sure about
can I just ask a good question? So it sounds almost like you're having people park down in the town forest parking lot and then guiding them to the Walden Woods project property. Is that fair to say?
Seems like it.
If
well,
you're
that
not-
well, I suppose they could park at the high school and then, you know,
Well, you better check
and
with the high
cross
school.
over.
No,
I
no,
mean,
I'm asking the question. That's just as you're saying. On the town, you know, the majority of the installation will be on the Walden Woods project. And on the town parcel, it is just the fabric markers that guide people to that parcel.
Right,
Um,
and the
Other
field
than the
area.
request
and
of
the field.
of the
field.
of the cabin,
Right.
And so we do it again. When you say live performance near the cabin,
Yeah.
again, that creates other issues, so I would not plan on that necessarily. I think
So
that
the-
the
the
next
parking-
point, it sets
The parking
precedent
is,
that there's
the
live
parking is a
performances.
constraint. I mean,
Yes,
that's that, we can't have all the parking be taken up. You know, if there's like a live performance at the Walden Woods project property, and we have
It's a small
regular dog walkers that already complain to us because, well, it doesn't matter why, but you know, people park it there at the town forest to go to Walden Pond, right? And so it fills up. We can't have that parking lot, which is, I don't know, what is it, 15 spaces, maybe?
yeah, 15, 20,
Yeah.
at best.
You know,
And are the signs to say that it's for Concord residents only parking
half
there?
of the parking
Half
lot
the
is for
parking.
Concord, yeah, for Concord residents. Right, so I guess, I mean, that's just something to be mindful of, that as you're thinking performance art, what does that look like? And how is Walden Woods going to accommodate,
Well,
you know, parking?
well, don't forget, if there's performances up there, they're
Yeah.
still walking through the NRC land to get there, which is just more
Not if they're not
impact.
parking down at Town Forest.
Well, they are at the top, even if they
You know,
came at the.
I mean, if Walden Woods, talk to Walden Woods Project about Oh, that's the
Town
town land too.
property.
Yeah.
But
how you
that's
come
still, I mean, that would be,
It's an
that would
easier-
be
it's
an
an
easier
easier-
access.
Absolutely would be.
And I feel like there's some easements that we've worked with Walden Woods project on before, but I can't remember. That's like 15 years ago. But anyway, I mean, just to keep in mind, the town forest parking lot cannot be your main point of parking for any like major, you know, bringing people to this, because if we don't have it accessible to residents who expect to be able to walk a town forest, that's gonna be an issue.
Good point. No,
Okay. Makes sense. I think we can probably work with some other entities on that.
Yeah,
Okay.
great.
Yeah.
And we can talk offline about that,
Mm.
Stephanie.
okay, so fair to say, we appreciate the overview,
Mhm.
look forward to some more specific details downstream a little bit, and hopefully we've gotten some reasonable feedbacks from the commission tonight to help you with that.
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
And
Very good
can I just
parameters.
ask
Yeah.
how things are coming for this year's Ramble? Are you doing one
As I
this year?
mentioned, we're not doing one this
Not
fall
doing this
because
year,
we're
okay,
doing this
okay.
in the spring instead.
Got it, okay,
There you go.
Good.
Thank you, that's good to know.
So you're
Great.
completely up to date.
Okay.
And we do have some specifics, well, but not as specific as you said. So we'll wait until we have, I mean, we have a list of artists, we have images of their work they've done in the past, but we'll wait until we have their proposals for this particular site.
Great.
As long
Good.
as we know that the time frame is basically possible, with the exception of the parking issue for any special events
Yeah.
for this
Great.
year. Okay,
Sounds good.
Thank you.
thank you. Thank you very much.
All right, we'll see you back. Take
Okay,
care.
bye.
We good?
Next item, Bill or Nick, you want to take that one on real quick here?
What do we have here?
Chair appointment.
Oh,
There we go.
Wow, this is both happy and sad, isn't it?
Yeah,
Um,
happy.
I bet you're happy. Well, you've done a great
how
job.
many years has this been? About 4?
Closing in on 4.
Yeah,
Not quite there, but
You've been excellent at it.
Oh,
You really
thank you.
have.
Yes, you have.
yes.
Been amazing
Excellent.
working with you. So I guess then I would move that we appoint, or how do we do, who's?
I
appointing?
nominate.
Nominate Sarah Grimwood from 520 Lexington Road to become the next Natural Resources Commission Chair for an appointment that would expire May 31st, 2025.
Second,
all right, we'll take the vote. Bill,
Aye.
Nick,
aye.
and I am an I as well. Good luck, Sarah. All right. She'll do a great job.
Yeah.
She'll do a great job.
Yes.
So, hey, this doesn't mean you're still on the commission, correct?
I'm kind of, yeah, I will be a commissioner at will, coming up soon. My term expires in May, June, right?
Right, end of May.
But
Any applicants?
There have been 2 applicants that I've reached out to, and I've heard back from one of them. She couldn't make the meeting tonight. But, you know, I guess on that note, maybe, so the CPC has an opening for the NRC liaison.
Uh-huh.
Everybody's busy.
I know, everybody's busy.
Yeah.
So, something for you and Gary to think about.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
And let's Ed or I know what your thoughts
So-
are about that.
So.
It's a 1-year appointment. It's busy in the fall.
Mhm.
It's less busy at other times.
Sure. For me, if Gary does not want to do it, and Nick, you don't. wanna-
I'm overloaded.
Yeah, I know you are. It's true. So if Gary does not want to do it, then I'll do it.
Okay.
Oh, thank you, Bill.
Yeah.
That's great.
Mhm.
Good,
Awesome.
thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome.
All right, last issue on the table tonight. Draft mitigation plan.
Yes, we talked
Sure.
about this a couple months ago.
Yep.
So there was a few edits.
Pretty good.
Few edits, start at the top, we switched it from guidelines to policy.
It looks helpful. I liked it, just from the
Right.
point of view of an applicant.
Yeah.
It looked helpful.
Yeah, and then at the last meeting, again, it was a few months ago, but talked about foliar spray Rather than saying no foliar spray, exceptional circumstances, think about, large patches of knotweed, where that may be the only option. Added qualifications to the applicator, as you can see, just to get some more details on that.
Well, I like the follow-up stuff too.
Yeah.
That makes it clear what we're expecting.
Hey, Brett, I just had a couple of nits.
Yep.
I think on the second sentence is just a typo, maybe.
Which in here?
It says, no, all the way up to the top. Or it just, I think it's just a plural thing, right? Second sentence, wetland resource areas and buffers of mitigating impacts is versus are. That's all.
Here?
Is
So that's
typically or
right.
are typically impacts.
Mitigating impacts is typically that's odd.
That's a weird
phrasing.
sentence.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Impacts are usually mitigated through,
yeah.
or typically mitigated through.
Yeah,
How about
that's an
that?
R issue for me.
Yeah.
Is versus.
You're
are.
right.
I know, but
Yeah.
that sounds so weird. Mitigate impacts
Yeah.
are typically achieved. Okay, but
But R is a plural, right? For the
Yeah,
impact.
sure
you're
is.
right. You're right. You're,
It was just kind of a
That's the
weird,
only
it was kind of a
English I
weird.
know. Believe me. Um.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
quickly on the, when you say that and it's just clarification, I think it's a great document. In the no disturb zone,
Mhm.
why wouldn't you have the 5-to-1 mitigation up there? If it's for those restoration purposes versus it being in the 25 to 50 foot? Isn't the 5-to-1 only for the buffers of the 0 to 25?
yes,
That's all I'm saying.
that is the 25, the NDZ.
Yeah, the NDZ.
10-to-1 if mitigation is proposed outside the no disturb zone. Reduced to 5-to-1. I'm sorry, I'm not,
In other words, where it says but the 5-to-1 relates to this, to the NDZ, right?
yeah,
So wouldn't that 5-to-1 be up there if it were for restoration activities? That's all I'm saying.
Oh.
In
Yeah.
other words, that goes up with the NDZ and the 10-to-1 is for the 25 to
but
50.
the 10, you can reduce your, that's correct. So you are 10-to-1 if you propose impacts in the 50.
Yeah,
But if you propose mitigation in the 50, you're 10-to-1.
so I
But if
see what you're
the
saying.
25, because it's closer to the resource area, it's more beneficial. We say,
I get the tie-in now. In other words, you're saying that people can make that trade.
right,
Thank you.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah,
I didn't
yeah.
follow
Yeah,
that.
this is-
I didn't
yes, I
follow
get it.
that
I get it now.
follow
Yeah, I
now.
see what you're
I didn't
saying.
quite
Yeah.
understand
Yeah.
exactly why I sat there, but now I do.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. And then just real quick, on the plantings, isn't there typically don't we require like a 2-year or 3-year? Do you want to state that here so that people understand that
Oh, that's good.
it's not just planting them and getting out of Dodge?
Yeah,
It's like,
right.
there's a requirement, 2
Yeah,
years
yeah.
or
yeah,
3 years
that's a
and.
really good point, because
Very good
people
point.
forget that.
Yeah,
And
all
say
the
like,
time.
boom, 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 where's my COC?
Yeah.
Well, they're not
Yeah.
bad, so.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
and then is there any suggested distances you would like to see between the pheno markers typically? Just to give some thought to it versus one person thinking, okay, I got a pheno marker out there. Well, we need 10 of them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
20 feet, 25.
25, again, whatever you guys think you've kind
You
of
could say
legislated it.
20 to 25 feet or something.
Mhm.
Yeah, but just so that
Yeah.
somebody has the idea if they've
Right.
got a couple 100 feet, okay. Yeah, get a sense.
Right.
Yeah, no, you're
To
absolutely right.
follow any jogs,
Right?
Yeah.
Depends on the contours.
you know?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
True.
all,
Right.
But you could say maybe typically, but there might be extenuating circumstances that may change that or something to that effect.
Right.
And then the only last, sorry to be so,
That's good.
because I always pick
Yeah.
up stupid things. I can tell you how many contracts, purchase and sales or whatever leases where we always say, when there's always confusion or conflict, at least I come back saying, I wish I had put an example in there. Because that would have clarified it, right? Instead of like, okay, let's debate, how we make
What
that
that means.
sausage.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
So I just real quickly, would it be helpful at all or not just to
May-
put a simple
maybe it-
table in here from
Maybe at
an
the end.
example of 0 to 25, 25 to 50, and here's a typical impact chart.
Yeah.
So somebody
That's
could
a-
really
that's a good
understand
idea.
it, so they don't
Yeah.
start from scratch and say, well, I get it. How
But
do you
like
want to
this,
see it?
so,
You know, or
I
something
agree,
like
but I would put it at the end so that.
Yeah, no, I agree
doesn't
with you
mess up
too.
the
So
flow.
this is the last page where the pheno marker detail,
Great.
and then we put the tree protection detail
Yeah,
in there
That's
too.
wonderful.
Just to have it,
I like that.
for
a lot.
applicants.
Those are great.
Yeah,
They
yeah, it's great.
don't have to ask.
So it'd be easy
Add
enough
one more.
to put a table
Yeah.
in there
Just
that.
here's a typical chart with impacts and
Right.
they
Yeah,
understand
yeah, yeah.
25 to 50, you
So,
know.
but I think that is a tremendous idea. I'm not sure if it belongs in here, but we have. In the submission requirements, we say, provide a chart,
Okay,
but we can certainly put that in.
Give them.
or maybe
example
reference
chart,
it or
yeah.
something to
Yeah.
help.
That's a
Yeah,
good-
yeah, yeah,
That's
that's-
good.
Okay,
Yeah.
Yeah, those are
Okay.
great
Yeah.
suggestions.
But yeah, see this for examples, yeah.
Right.
okay,
All right.
thank you.
Those changes.
And I think with that, we are adjourned.
He's just falling asleep.
I
I forgot. he
I
was
don't
here.
blame him.
Good, good. I
Believe
mean,
me.
it's good.